I still remember the exact moment I realized everything I thought I knew about excellence was wrong. I was in my backyard in Bel Air, practicing the same combination I had thrown 10,000 times before. Left hook, right cross, spinning back kick, perfect form, perfect timing, perfect execution. I felt invincible, like I had finally mastered something profound. Then my son Brandon walked outside and asked me a question that shattered everything. "Dad, why do you do the same thing every day if you're already the best?" In that instant, staring at my 7-year-old son, I understood the most dangerous lie we tell ourselves about excellence. We think it's a destination, a moment of perfect achievement, a single act of brilliance that proves our worth. But excellence isn't something you do once and keep forever. Excellence isn't an act at all. Excellence is a habit, and most people never learn the difference. You think you understand what I mean, but you don't. Not yet. Because society has trained you to believe that excellence is about those shining moments, those breakthrough performances, those Instagram-worthy achievements that make everyone applaud. You've been conditioned to think that one great presentation, one perfect workout, one moment of courage defines your level of excellence. But that's exactly why you feel like you're constantly starting over, constantly proving yourself, constantly disappointed when yesterday's victory doesn't carry over to today's challenge. The truth I'm about to share will disturb you because it means taking responsibility not just for your moments of greatness, but for every single ordinary moment in between. When I first arrived in America, I thought my excellence was contained in my martial arts ability. I could perform techniques that amazed people, break boards that impressed audiences, move with a speed that seemed almost supernatural. I was excellent, I told myself. I had proof, but then reality hit me like a punch I never saw coming. Being excellent in one moment, in one arena, with one skill, means nothing if you cannot maintain that standard consistently across every area of your life. I discovered that the fighter who could perform miracles in the training hall could still be mediocre in relationships, could still be inconsistent in his daily habits, could still fail at the simple act of being present with his family. Excellence isn't a skill you master once. Excellence is a way of being that you choose again and again, especially when no one is watching. Let me tell you about the morning that changed my entire approach to training and to life itself. I woke up feeling unmotivated, tired, disconnected from my purpose. Every fiber of my being wanted to skip training, to take an easy day, to just coast on yesterday's efforts. This is the moment where most people reveal their true relationship with excellence. They wait for inspiration to strike, for motivation to return, for conditions to be perfect before they act. But as I stood there in my kitchen, drinking my morning tea, I realized something profound. Excellence has nothing to do with how you feel. Excellence is what you do when you don't feel like doing it. That morning, I trained anyway, not because I felt inspired, not because I was motivated, but because excellence is a habit, and habits don't negotiate with feelings. The problem with most people's understanding of excellence is that they're looking for the wrong thing entirely. They're hunting for peak moments, for those magical instances when everything clicks perfectly. But peak moments are not excellence. They're just the visible result of excellent habits. It's like looking at a tree and thinking the fruit is what makes the tree valuable, completely missing the root system that feeds everything above ground. Your excellent moments are just the fruit. Your daily habits are the roots. And most people spend their entire lives trying to grow fruit without ever tending to their roots. I learned this lesson the hard way when I was developing Jeet Kune Do. In the beginning, I was obsessed with creating the perfect technique, the ultimate move that would solve every fighting problem. I spent months perfecting a single strike, believing that this one perfect act would revolutionize martial arts. But every time I thought I had achieved perfection, real combat would humble me. Real opponents don't cooperate with your perfect technique. When you wake up tomorrow, excellence won't ask how you feel about practicing your craft. It won't negotiate with your moods or wait for perfect conditions. Excellence demands that you show up and perform your essential actions, whether you feel like it or not. This is where most people break, because they've been taught that passion and motivation should drive their actions. But passion fluctuates. Motivation comes and goes. Excellence requires you to act independent of these temporary states. The second pillar is micro-progression and progression. Excellence isn't built through dramatic transformations, but through marginal improvements compounded over time. Each day, you're not trying to be completely different from who you were yesterday. You're trying to be slightly better. Slightly better. 1% improvement, sustained over time, creates revolutionary change. But our culture has trained us to expect dramatic results, overnight transformations, immediate gratification. This expectation is the enemy of excellent habits because it makes us quit before the compound effect has time to work its magic. The tree doesn't grow visibly each day, but given enough time, it can crack concrete with its roots and tower above buildings with its branches. The third pillar is identity integration. This is the most misunderstood aspect of developing excellent habits. Most people try to change their actions while keeping the same identity. They want to exercise regularly while still seeing themselves as a non-athletic person. They want to speak confidently while still identifying as someone who's naturally shy. But your actions will always align with your identity. If you want to develop excellent habits, you must first become the type of person who naturally engages in those habits. You don't run because you want to become a runner. You run because you are a runner, and running is what runners do. I remember the exact moment this principle clicked for me. I was struggling to maintain a daily meditation practice, constantly skipping days, making excuses, treating it as something I should do rather than something I am called to do. Then I shifted my identity. Instead of seeing myself as someone trying to meditate, I saw myself as someone who meditates. Suddenly, skipping meditation felt wrong, not because I was breaking a rule, but because I was acting inconsistent with who I had become. The habit became effortless because it aligned with my identity rather than conflicting with it. This brings me to one of the most powerful insights about excellence that I've never shared publicly before. Excellence is not about what you do. It's about who you become through what you do to what you do. The habits themselves are just the vehicle. The real destination is the transformation of your character, your identity, your fundamental way of being in the world. When you commit to excellent habits, you're not just changing your actions, you're changing your actions. You're changing yourself at the deepest level. You're becoming someone who can be trusted to follow through, someone who maintains standards regardless of circumstances, someone who values process over outcomes. People often ask me about my training regimen, expecting me to reveal some secret technique or hidden method. But the real secret isn't in what I practiced. It's in how I practiced. Every single training session, regardless of my energy level or motivation, I approached with what I call sacred consistency. Where I treated each practice not as a step towards some future achievement, but as a complete expression of excellence in itself. I didn't train to become excellent someday. I trained excellently today. This shift in perspective changes everything because it means you're not waiting for some future moment to express your excellence. You're expressing it right now, in this moment, through your commitment to your practice. But let me warn you about the most dangerous trap that catches people who begin to understand these principles. They become so focused on maintaining their habits that they forget why they started in the beginning. They become slaves to their routines rather than masters of their craft. True excellence requires not just consistency, but conscious evolution. To choose. Your habits must grow with you, challenge you, continue to demand your best effort. The moment your excellent habits become automatic and easy, that's the moment you need to elevate your standards and find new edges to explore. I learned this lesson during my transition from pure martial arts into acting. The habits that made me an excellent fighter were necessary but not sufficient for excellent acting. I had to develop new habits of emotional expression, character study, script analysis, and collaboration. But here's the crucial insight. The meta habit of developing excellent habits transferred perfectly. Because I had already learned how to build consistency, how to push through resistance, how to maintain standards regardless of feelings, I could apply these same principles to an entirely new domain. Excellence is transferable because it's fundamentally about character, not just skill. This is why I'm so passionate about this topic. When you truly understand that excellence is a habit, you realize that you have the power to become excellent at anything you choose to commit to. You're not limited by your current skills, your past failures, or your perceived natural abilities. You're only limited by your willingness to develop and maintain excellent habits. The person who can show up consistently, practice deliberately, and maintain standards over time can eventually master any domain they choose to enter. Now, let me share with you the daily practices that I've refined over decades of pursuing excellence in multiple areas of life. These aren't just theories or philosophical concepts. These are the actual habits that transformed me from an angry, unfocused young man into someone capable of sustained excellence across martial arts, acting, philosophy, and personal relationships. But understand this, these practices are not magic formulas. They're tools, and tools are only as effective as the commitment and consistency of the person using them. The first practice is what I call the morning commitment ritual. Every single morning, before I do anything else, I spend 10 minutes in silence, not meditating in the traditional sense, but connecting with my commitment to excellence. I ask myself 3 questions. What does excellence demand of me today? How will I maintain my standards when I don't feel like it, eh? What identity am I choosing to embody through my actions? This isn't about motivation or inspiration. This is about choice. I'm choosing in advance to act excellently regardless of how the day unfolds. This 10-minute practice has prevented countless moments of weakness because I've already decided who I'm going to be before circumstances try to decide for me. The second practice is micro-assessment. Throughout the day, I pause regularly to assess not just what I'm doing, but how I'm doing it. Am I bringing excellent attention to this conversation? Am I maintaining excellent posture during this meeting? Am I practicing excellent patience with this difficult person? Excellence isn't just about your primary activities. Excellence is about the quality of presence and attention you bring to every moment. Most people save their best effort for their most important activities, but excellent people bring their best effort to everything they do because they understand that excellence is indivisible. The third practice is what I call failure integration. Every evening, I review the moments during the day when I fell short of my own standards, not to beat myself up, but to understand exactly what caused the failure and how to prevent it tomorrow. Most people either ignore their failures or dwell on them emotionally. Excellent people study their failures analytically. They treat failure as feedback, as information about where their habits need to be strengthened. This practice has taught me that failure isn't the opposite of excellence. It's the opposite of excellence. Failure is the raw material from which excellence is built. The fourth practice is edge expansion. Once a week, I deliberately choose one of my excellent habits and make it slightly more challenging. If I've been doing 50 push-ups daily with ease, I increase to 55. Dailies, I increase to 55. If I've been meditating for 20 minutes consistently, I extend to 25. Excellence requires constant growth, and growth requires constant challenge. The moment your habits become comfortable, you're no longer building excellence, you're just maintaining competence. Excellent people are always living slightly beyond their comfort zone, always reaching for the next level of their capabilities. But perhaps the most important practice, the one that ties all the others together, is what I call identity reinforcement. Several times throughout the day, especially when facing difficult decisions or challenging moments, I remind myself of who I am. I am someone who acts excellently. I am someone who maintains standards. I am someone who follows through on commitments. This isn't positive thinking or self-hypnosis. This is identity clarity. When you're absolutely clear about who you are, your actions naturally align with that identity. You don't have to force yourself to act excellently, because excellent action becomes the natural expression of your excellent identity. These practices might seem simple, even obvious, but don't let their simplicity fool you. Simple doesn't mean easy. In fact, the most profound truths are often the simplest ones. The challenge isn't in understanding these practices intellectually. The challenge is in implementing them consistently, especially when you don't feel like it, especially when life gets difficult, especially when nobody would notice if you took a shortcut. That's when these practices reveal their true power. Because that's when excellence is. Let me tell you about the moment when I truly understood the difference between excellence as an act and excellence as a habit. I was filming Enter the Dragon, arguably the most important project of my career. There was a scene that required me to perform a complex fighting sequence while delivering philosophical dialogue. The pressure was enormous. Everything had to be perfect because we only had one chance to get it right. But as I stood there on set, surrounded by cameras and crew and studio executives, I felt completely calm. Not because I was confident about this one performance, but because I had been preparing for this moment through thousands of hours of excellent daily practice. My excellence in that moment wasn't an act I was performing. It was simply the natural expression of who I had become through years of excellent habits. That's when I realized the ultimate truth about excellence. When excellence becomes a habit, it stops being something you do and starts being something you are. You don't have to try to be excellent in important moments because you've been practicing excellence in unimportant moments. You don't have to summon excellence from somewhere outside yourself because you've built excellence into the very fabric of your being. This is the difference between people who occasionally perform at a high level, and people who consistently embody excellence as a way of life. But here's what nobody tells you about this level of excellence. It doesn't make life easy. In fact, in many ways, it makes life more demanding. When you commit to excellence as a habit, you can no longer accept mediocrity from yourself in any area. You can no longer make excuses or take easy shortcuts. You can no longer blame circumstances or other people for your failures. Excellence demands complete ownership of your choices and their consequences. This level of responsibility can feel overwhelming, which is why most people never commit to it fully. However, this demanding nature of excellent habits is also what makes them so rewarding. When you know that you can trust yourself to maintain high standards, regardless of circumstances, you develop an unshakable confidence that no external validation can provide. When you know that you've put in the work day after day, whether you felt like it or not, you can face any challenge, knowing that you've already proven your reliability to yourself. This internal validation is worth more than all the external recognition in the world because it can never be taken away from you. This brings me to the most crucial distinction I want you to understand. There's a difference between excellent habits and perfectionist habits. Perfectionist habits are rigid, punitive, and ultimately unsustainable. They demand flawless execution and create anxiety when standards aren't met. Excellent habits, on the other hand, are flexible, compassionate, and sustainable. They focus on consistency over perfection, progress over perfection, commitment over perfection. When you miss a day of your excellent habit, you don't abandon the entire practice. You simply return to it the next day, understanding that excellence is measured over months and years, not days and weeks. I learned this distinction through painful experience. In my early years, I was a perfectionist about my training. If I missed a single day, I would feel like a failure. If I performed below my best in any session, I would punish myself with extra work. This perfectionist approach eventually led to burnout and injury. I had to learn that true excellence is sustainable excellence, and sustainable excellence requires compassion for your human limitations while maintaining unwavering commitment to your long-term standards. Now, as we approach the end of our time together, I want to issue you a challenge that will test everything we've discussed. For the next 30 days, I want you to choose one area of your life where you will practice excellence as a habit rather than pursuing excellence as an act. It could be your physical fitness, your professional work, your relationships, your creative practice, or your personal development. The specific area doesn't matter as much as your commit to the process. Here's how you'll approach this challenge. First, define what excellent daily practice looks like in your chosen area. Not what perfect practice looks like, but what consistent, high-quality practice looks like. Make it specific, measurable, and sustainable. Second, commit to this practice for 30 consecutive days, regardless of your feelings, circumstances, or results. Third, track your practice daily, not to judge yourself, but to build awareness of your patterns and progress. Fourth, when you inevitably face resistance, remember that the resistance is not a problem to be solved, but a muscle to be strengthened. The resistance is where excellence is actually built. Most importantly, use this challenge to begin the process of identity transformation. Don't just practice excellent habits, become an excellent person. Let your daily actions slowly reshape your self-concept until excellence becomes not something you do, but something you are. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen, and when it does, it changes everything about how you move through the world. As you embark on this challenge, remember that you're not just trying to improve one area of your life. You're developing the meta skill of excellence itself. You're proving to yourself that you can be trusted to follow through on commitments. You're building the character traits that support achievement in any domain. You're becoming someone who can turn any vision into reality through the simple but profound practice of showing up excellently, day after day after day. The path of excellence is not for everyone. It demands more than most people are willing to give. It requires you to maintain standards when others are cutting corners. It asks you to be consistent when others are making excuses. It demands that you take full responsibility for your results when others are blaming circumstances. But for those who walk this path, for those who understand that excellence is a habit and not an act, life becomes something extraordinary. Not because of what you achieve, but because of who you become in the process of achieving it. I began this conversation by telling you about a moment when I thought I understood excellence, only to realize I knew nothing at all. Now I leave you with this understanding. Excellence is not a destination you reach, but a way of traveling. It's not something you achieve once and keep forever, but something you choose again and again, especially when you don't feel like choosing it. Excellence is a habit, and like all habits, it becomes easier with practice and stronger with time. The mirror is waiting for you now, not to show you your flaws or failures, but to reflect back the excellent person you are becoming through your excellent choices. Look into it and see not who you were yesterday or who you might become tomorrow, but who you are choosing to be right now, in this moment, through your commitment to excellence as a way of life. Be water, my friend, but be excellent water, flowing consistently toward your highest potential, reshaping everything you touch through the simple but profound power of excellent habits maintained over time. Excellence is a habit, not an act. Make it your habit and watch how it transforms not just what you accomplish, but who you become in the process of accomplishing it.